Okay, I think we'll have a start. Good morning, everybody. This is the IETF ANIMA 2024-01 interim meeting, and there is one mandatory slide I need to show, which is the IETF Note Well. So this is a meeting of the IETF. Everything you say will be used for the benefit of the IETF and is public, and you know all the other things. Yeah, the agenda is very open. We wanted to talk, I think, about two main things. First, I think we wanted to spend about half of the time or so on seeing how we can work through the open issues of the documents that are in working group last call to move them closer to AD, and then discuss the discovery of core LF for the Brewski discovery, as well as the constraint and voucher and proxy, where they are all the main discovery mechanism. So with that being said, I'd like to hand off maybe to, well, where is he? I think Michael wanted to lead that, but I don't see him right now. Who was in here?
Morning, Charles.
Good morning. So are we having some problems with the participants for the first part? Michael, there you are again. Do you want to take it from here for the open issues that you think we could make progress today? Can you folks hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, still not getting any good vibrations from Michael here. Let me see.
Maybe only on the chat link to the meeting. I don't know.
Let's see if there's something coming on email. Okay, so if Michael has issues, Stefan, is there anything from your side that you think we can make progress on for item number 1 right now? Otherwise, we may need to move this to next Tuesday or so if we don't have quorum today. We can't hear you. I think you need to enable your audio first. Click on the microphone button. Nope. Can't hear you.
Yeah, same for me. I don't hear him. One-way audio. Okay.
Okay.
Isn't technology wonderful?
Wow.
While we're waiting, Torles, have you had any luck beating on the XFRM people?
No, not yet. Sorry. It's right now all the document work and unfortunately not getting to any coding there.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think the workaround that we discussed in email, I mean, if that is something feasible for you to start trying with, that should be working, and I think that wouldn't be, requiring any more than just getting a right XFRM config to work.
Right.
Does it work now?
We can hear you now, I think.
Okay.
Yes.
That is okay. Perfect. I'm not quite sure what went wrong on my side here. So I've prepared 2 slides. Basically, that is the issue that I tried to discuss on the mailing list, based on the questions or based on the comment from Carsten during the last IETF meeting. So if you open the slide, I think it's not a long issue to discuss, but
I haven't seen any. Did I overlook you trying to propose them to? Otherwise, if you can just share your screen or so.
Yes, let me look over the
Were
slides.
they?
You confirmed the slides already this morning, so they should be on the.
Okay, let me see.
But it's no problem. I can also. I can share my screen, Torles, because I think that's probably faster.
Yeah, I'll just want to make sure that they're stored, but just go ahead, please.
Okay. What do I need to do to share the screen?
I think just the share screen, but I mean, I can share the slides for you. They seem to be, I think.
Okay. Yeah. Right. So when you go to the next slide, that was essentially one question regarding CDDL. So to make a long story short, we utilize CDDL to describe every function, every prototype for which we didn't have any young module, and specifically for the trigger messages, and we tried to make that in the same way as it has been done in Brewski for the status messages, for the telemetry messages that are there. So in Brewski PRM, we are having, in addition to the status messages, we have trigger messages, and we have one to trigger the pledge to create a CSR, a certificate signing request. And for that, we had defined this type of trigger message. And the intention is actually to allow not just a single enroll type, but to have something like an enumeration where we have a single value that can be put into the enroll type. So this is basically the goal that we are trying to reach. And Carsten, last time during IETF, you said that it's probably better to define it in a different way. And if we look on the slide, on the next slide, then this is what we discussed in the Torles, if you can click to the next slide, then perfect. So this is actually the outcome, what we discussed in the design team meetings that usually happen on Tuesday. So the proposed CDDL approach would be like here in the second bullet point, to have the pledge enrollment request trigger, to have the enroll type there, and to have something, we didn't use the map, we use the enroll type string to be able to define how the enroll type string is being filled. So in the case of Brewski PRN, we would define enroll generic cert. That is the intention of PRN. And that would leave the possibility or the flexibility to define other enroll types for other specifications. Like specifically, if there is a further specification that would like to bootstrap certificates for an application, then they could define something like enroll at cert.
So the first question I would have before we go to the CDDL, this is supposed to be a registry, or what kind of allocation policy do you have for this?
So we describe the functions in Brewski PRM. So the different function types, and then oh, you mean regarding the enroll type string? No, we don't have a registry. So it's basically defined in PRM what this value should be filled with, and we came up with this type of formulation to have flexibility, but we haven't thought about any kind of registry where those type of strings can be registered.
Yeah, so that really would be the thing you first need to decide before we can discuss the CDDL. So this is not for constrained environments, right?
No, in the first place not, but it may be used later on for constrained environment. But right now we are using it with JSON.
Okay. Good. So you want to have a JSON object that has a single member, which has the key and role type and a value. And that value really is just an enumeration, right?
Yeah.
But you do want to fill this enumeration with strings. The usual thing would be to use numbers, but of course you can use strings.
Okay, maybe enumeration was the wrong word here. So we would like to use strings in the first place, and so we need some way to be able to specify those strings. One of those strings is specified by PRM with this enroll generic cert.
Okay, so basically you don't need to open another JSON object, right? So these inner braces are unnecessary. You really want what you had on the previous slide, but allow other values in addition to enroll generic set. So let's lose those inner braces. Since what you have there is a single value, you really want to have a type socket and not a group socket. So you lose one of the dollar signs. And now the remaining thing is that you want to give the initial value that you allow by putting in something like $arbitrary enroll type string / equals enroll generic set.
As default value. Okay.
It's not the default, it's the first one you define. And if you define a new one, you write an RFC that simply updates this RFC and provides an additional value that you can put in there.
So what is the typical cutover between doing this RFC by RFC versus registry?
Well, with a registry, the new document you write doesn't have to update this document. That's really the main difference. Of course, you also have to decide what the registry policy will be. So can anyone come in, or do you have RFC required, or do you actually have a standards action requirement on this? So this would be the usual things you decide when you do a registry. I was right now just focusing on how to put this into the CDDL and make the extensibility of this value visible while at the same time limiting it to enroll generic cert for now.
Okay. Yeah, that is very helpful. I think we currently I don't see a need for having a registry, because essentially we will have two different values, which I would expect. One is generic cert and one is an app specific cert. Right now I can't think of anything else. So based on that, I think avoiding a registry is perfectly fine.
Yeah, I'm taking this as notes.
Okay.
So.
Okay, so that actually answers my question. Thank you very much, Carsten.
So I put the CDL I have in mind in the chat. So I still need to test this, but
Yeah.
that's there's a double quote here. Sorry. Yeah, let me just. I'm very typo heavy today. Sorry.
Well, it's Friday. Perfectly fine.
Should be fine. That's what I was about thinking as well. If I take the typos.
So with fewer typos, it looks like this.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So I will use that one and go forward then in PRM. That was a missing piece.
So dollar just means it's kind of a variable to be filled with one of those values. Is that kind of the syntax on CDDL?
It's actually, it's best if you actually read the text from 8610, but it's essentially meant as a socket, so you can put in new stuff. So at some point when you define your new stuff, your enroll whatever cert, then you just add a line and put other things into the same socket. So this now is a choice between two values.
Well, because I don't remember that we have done that in RFC 8995 or other older ANIMA documents where we also had things where we did think about extension points, right?
Well, for instance, you have $transport proto / equals IP proto TCP.
Mhm.
So you are using it in at least one place in 8995. But that's what we have provided for these extensible mechanisms in CDL. So I think
but that was, I think, inherited from some place, right? So when we added new extension points, I don't think we did put dollar at them. So is that basically something we should be doing more consistently when?
Yes.
Okay. Right.
So the point here really is that people can have a CDDL file like my second to last message in the chat, and then add the final line I put in the chat, and then just get an extended definition. So you don't have to touch the original definition because this is identified as something that is supposed to be extended. You can just put this extension into a new document.
Right.
Don't have to touch the old one.
And the kind of fact that this is adding to some, I mean, there is no registration like in Yang for the actual object definitions, right? That's still kind of just text elements in prior RFCs that are being informally referred to. So you still manually need to kind of pull together the CDDL that you want to use if you want to create code.
Yes, and there is a document, the modules draft, that provides a way to do that. And we are discussing that right now in the CBOR working group, and probably we will ship this to the ISG within a couple of months or so.
Okay.
What Thomas, what just comes up in my mind is what we could also do is we could define in PRM enroll generic cert and also enroll app cert and just explain for what enroll generic cert is used and leaving it open for other documents to explain what enroll app cert is used, and saying that this is foreseen, but it's outside the scope of the specification.
Sure. I don't
You
think
might
I
get
fully
some-
captured that, but maybe if you can put that in the notes, if you don't want to forget it.
Might get some pushback from ISG on this.
Oh, you mean to be ahead of the own specification? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you want to say this is extensible, this is meant to be extended, but saying here is the extension, but we are not going to tell you yet what that means, that might ruffle some feathers.
Okay.
I mean, you could even explain that a document could have $enroll type / enroll absurd as an explanatory information to that, but I wouldn't put it in because then you have an open hole in your spec.
Okay, that perfectly fits with, I put on the slide with additional explanation, and in the additional explanation in the last statement, I basically provided this as some kind of motivation example. Why is this, why shall this string be variable or being defined also by others? Okay. Okay.
So I would probably do a register here and make sure that each application that defines a different kind of cert actually defines a different string for that, but that's a protocol design choice, and I'm not trying to make comments on the protocol design here.
Okay.
Shall we advance a slide?
Well, that's the last one.
Oh, that's the last one. Okay.
Okay, then thank you, Carsten, for the explanation and for the discussion. That's very helpful.
Okay. So shall we move on to the discovery part? Okay, so we submitted that that document after acceptance by the working group after last IETF. Just to give a quick background here, we want to do discovery of proxies by pledges, which includes also the cases in constrained Brewski for which will be normal case. We don't have proxies, but it's simply the registrar itself, because the pledge doesn't really see a difference whether it is talking to a registrar or a proxy. But then when we do want to build proxies, we need to separately discover registrars only and not just, other proxies, because we want to have a single stage proxy set up typically in networks. And different registrars will have different variations of the Brewski protocol. So we want to discover them, and then the proxies should be able to announce to the pledges the variation of the registrar, and do that automatically so that we don't have to upgrade proxies just because we've got a new variation of the Brewski protocol. And so that's what Brewski discovery brings, with different discovery mechanisms: GRASP, DNS, SD. And now the thing that was missing from the text so far was the core LF. So we started to add that. That's in the 0001, and so there were a couple of questions that came up. So the constrained voucher and constrained proxy drafts already had core LF functionality that will stay in there, but we're trying to make it similarly to other Brewski drafts, the minimum necessary to get an interoperable implementation, but put all the complex variations into the discovery mechanisms, and then likely also remove GRASP and DNS SD texts from a constrained voucher and constrained proxy drafts, so that we'll keep them as simple as possible. So what we're discovering really and looking for are a combination of what I would generically call service name. In CoreLF, it's called resource. So what we have defined so far, that for Brewski via GRASP, we can discover AN join registrar with TCP, AN proxy with TCP, and then for constraint Brewski, it is AN join registrar with UDP, AN join registrar, and that's kind of what I just added to the discovery draft _JPY, which is the stateless variation. And we had that previously called RPY, but I think it would be nice if we are consistently using the abbreviation JPY, because that's kind of what we call the stateless protocol header. And so that's what I've been trying to fix up also in the discovery document, and that would go through all the different mechanisms. DNS-SD very similarly, just that the strings have a minus sign instead of an underscore in the names. So that's the existing discovery mechanisms. So those were just minor changes that I did for the 01 version. So now when we go to CoreLF, what we're discovering here, same things. They're encoded into the resource target parameter. What I'm been putting into the 01 draft, and that would have to be consistently also done, fixing up the strings in constraint voucher and proxy, is Brewski.jp for the discovery join proxy, which is what the pledge is discovery. So that is what the constraint voucher document already does today. And then the two variations, what a proxy can discover as the registrar is RJPY, registrar join with the JPY protocol, and then RS for stateful registrar. So those two strings are up for discussion. That's just what I think might be nice to have. So then when we do discovery with CoreLF, we would be doing, for example, multicast. So FF02 : FD would be link local scope IPv6 for core. That's the assigned multicast address, well known. And then we're asking for the join proxy. So this is what a pledge would be doing. And for example, here, what we could return would be, in one case, CoAP-S, Brewski.jp. So the first response line would be for cBrewski, constraint Brewski, and the second one would be standard Brewski, right? So that would be the encodings of them. Unfortunately, it seems that we need to. That's what ESCO was figuring out from reading the RFCs. We need to include the whole IP address if we want to indicate the port number, and so that's one of those questions, Carstens. Is there any simpler way to formulate these answers than including the full IP address when we just want to signal a port number?
I haven't checked this, but I would expect that's not feasible. You actually have to
Okay.
address them.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, also the scheme needs to be included. And I think this is one of the issues with link format as it is defined today. So you cannot say, okay, it's on the same server, but on a different port, I also host this resource. So that's giving a bit of problems. But yeah, the scheme is at least different. If you have unsecured discovery pointing to a secure resource, then you also need to include the scheme on the line.
Or just taking notes.
I don't know anything about the formatting here, but these things that start with co-ops and HTTPS, they have a caret but there's no matching caret anywhere.
No, there is the
Oh,
matching
there it is.
port number.
There it is. It's after 84, 85. Okay.
Yeah.
So the link format is a key value thing, with one exception. If you have a URI in there, then you don't use key equals value. You use open angle bracket URI closing angle bracket. That's something we just got from RFC 5988 that we copied here.
Sorry, which RFC was that? Copied from which RFC?
5988.
Yeah, and now it's 8288, which has replaced that, but that still has the same syntax.
Yeah, and so I was asking a question down there, right? So would it be, appropriate to hack around this long encoding if we added something like another attribute p equal port?
Yes, I mean it would be a very special thing you would be doing there. I mean, the point here is to provide a web link, and the web link has a URI, and yeah, Christian says it's no longer a link then.
Okay.
I think so if you wanted to work around that, what you could do is provide more of a self-description. So not provide a link at all, but describe what you have there already, what you're discovering, and then put hints in there that say, and by the way, here are these and those things that are related to me. It doesn't really fit in well-known core anymore, but at least then it's not violating the link format anymore. So it's like, don't try to talk about the thing you are pointing to. Try to talk about the thing you already have discovered, like this, the part that is on regular co-op, and then attach metadata to that, maybe.
Right. So we wouldn't put the scheme. I mean, yeah. So ultimately, if we want to say the scheme and the port number, that would be then additional attributes. But so it sounds like we might rather not want to start having that discussion because IESG review would be painful, even though it may be possible. But there needs to be a strong enough, I think, deployment reason not to have that size. That's what I hear.
Yeah, so again, as Christian wrote in the chat, this is an issue with URIs, specifically with URI references or relative URIs, and you can change certain things in a URI reference, but you cannot change others. And changing the port number is not something that was considered. And I very much think 30 years later, we know why we would want to do this, but it's not something that was provided. Yeah, I agree with Christian here.
Yeah, there was actually some work started a couple of years ago about a more efficient, more compact way to encode the same link. So you could kind of maybe compress this IP address in a very efficient way because it's the same IP address as the one responding. So, but I don't think that work ever continued until completion, right?
That work is approaching completion, but it's still using the same concepts as a URI. So there is still a relative CRI reference which inherits from the URI reference that you can't switch around scheme or port without switching around the host.
Well, we could put in...
Yeah, compress something better, maybe.
We could put in a mechanism into the CRI reference resolution to take the IP address from context. We could. This would then be different from the UI reference resolution, which we are not going to change there.
Yeah, but then it could be dangerous if you have proxies in the middle. So it's maybe not a general solution.
Yeah, they would have to resolve the relative reference before passing it on. Because
but
it's
it
not a valid UI.
But it doesn't work if it's encrypted or signed or whatever. But in this case, it's just link local communication, what we see here. So in this example, so
yeah, but link format breaks apart anyway if it is tampered with. Like if there is a reverse proxy that doesn't understand what is going on, then links do break. It's the same as with WebDAV through a reverse proxy.
Okay. Yeah, so at least here is in this example, there's no proxies
right
happening in this stuff.
Right. The other question on the slide was that, are we fine that in the query we, I guess, cannot filter whether we're interested only in the COAP or only in the HTTPS options, right? Is it true that I'm saying we can't filter in the query? And if so, would we feel that limitation is good, is acceptable?
For the multicast discovery, it's not specified that you can filter there. When looking it up in the resource directory, you can say rt equals bruski.jp and href equals coop s : / wildcard.
There is
that
actually
would be legal.
There is actually for core link format discovery also the query defined. I think it was in 6690.
The thing is that the query of 6690 that is being used here is only defined for a single query argument and does not state that multiple queries are ended together.
Yeah, that's only for a single one. That's correct. But in this case, we are querying a single element here.
But we would be querying multiple elements if we asked for coop s or just HTTPS resources, unless that were somehow encoded in the RT.
Yeah, but maybe the underlying question is, so if you have a resource type, so that seems to be not only for co-op resources then, but also of HTTP resources that express the same thing. That's the assumption that was made for this example. Is that correct? So that you can use RT and also for HTTP resources?
I would think so.
Okay. So
I'm sorry, Christian, you were not audible.
I think it's okay to have the same resource type for multiple transports.
All right. Yeah, because you okay. Yeah.
So Christian, I didn't get. Can you write that in the chat? How that filtering by the schema would be in resource directory? Oh, wow. Welcome to Webland. Yep. Nice.
I think you can leave out some of the special characters there. I don't know whether we would need to quote the thing.
Yeah, so like HTTP star would be sufficient.
HTTP. Okay. All right. Thank you. So let's go to the next slide. Right, so one of the things I stumbled across looking through all that CoAP stuff was that the registrations for CoAP were also done for TCP, which made me think that there is CoAP over TCP or TLS. Yes, no, maybe, and if so, what are the schema for that? I couldn't find any schema for that.
Well, it's RFC 8323. The URL scheme we defined for that is CoAP plus TCP.
Okay.
Or CoAP S plus TCP.
Okay.
And that's something that we woefully regret, but it was the right decision at the time. And Christian, can you add the link to the internet draft that explains how to do this in general? Thank you.
So meaning that the answer is also yes, 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 but just don't use it.
Well, you can use it, and then you have to use CoAP S plus TCP or CoAP plus TCP. But it's I just wanted to add, this is not the general solution. It's the solution we specifically did for TCP and TLS. And we are working on something more general, and Christian just put in the pointer here.
Right.
Okay, so that's the CoAP variations draft, maybe.
And actually, that's a late response to an AD comment at the time we completed 8323 that this was ugly. And yeah, 10 years later, we are solving the problem.
Well, okay, so wait a second. So, but now there are two different things, right? One is the URI encoding. The other one is whether CoAP S over TCP is something that would be useful in deployments or not.
I cannot answer that question.
Okay.
So, I mean, there is something called DNS over TCP, and that has similar considerations. So you may be able to transfer your views of DNS over TCP to whether you should be using CoAP over TCP or not.
Okay. Okay. But it's, I think, short of anything where we would say we need to be worried about considering support for it. I think everything we're writing wouldn't exclude it, but we would simply be well off right now by not creating more variations by explicitly considering it.
Christian points out that we also define CoAP over WebSockets, and I'm pretty sure you don't want to do CoAP over WebSockets here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you are talking about a constrained situation where you are not really sure how well your network is working and so on, I think the UDP-based approach is the right one, unless you have to send around really big pieces of data, which post-quantum crypto might force you to do at some point. But for today, I don't think you need it.
Yeah, big amounts of data is, I think, the simple distinction, and I think we're all fine on the side that we don't have that. All right, good. So that was that. Next slide. Okay, so now we come to the actual variations. So when we do make a Brewski transport connection, we'll pretty much have in that connection 3 type of variations that can occur altogether, right? So the first one is whether the registrar acts in responder mode or whether the pledge acts in responder mode. the second one is how the voucher is encoded, signally different encoded CMS, COSE, HOSE, and then there can be different enrollment protocols, EST, CMP, and the future, various other ones. SEP comes to mind as a legacy one that people may want to have, and there are other variations. So now, even if implementations support multiple options here, they may not support an arbitrary combination in a single transport connection, right? And so when we started to define for DNS and DNS-SD and GRASP how to signal the variation supported by registrar, there was implementer worry for kind of parsing complex descriptions of these variations. So the outcome was pretty much that we wanted to have, for every variation supported, a flattened string that simply, represents one particular combination of options that the registrar support. So, for example, the string RRM-CMS-EST would be the combination of exactly, one choice for each of these variations, and that's exactly describing what RFC 8995 is doing. Then, for example, just COSE would be constrained Brewski. That would be, the same RRM, the same EST, just, replacing CMS with COSE. And so those strings would be maintained in registry. And that means that we can, in the registry, easily add things based on different, mechanisms, on expert review, different type of specifications, so that we don't necessarily have to write RFCs for any of these combinations that may come up, so that hopefully then the variation schema through the registry creates less implementation overhead or less process overhead than when we wanted to go with full RFC on each of those. Right. So ESCO is just pointing out that we are using constrained EST. So now that was actually one of those possible questions, whether we actually need to, use a different string when the transport being used implies a different variation of a protocol, right? And so far, I've been thinking that we don't need to do that. If I'm signaling in a variation, it's EST, and the transport connection is CoAP, then it is clear, and that, of course, needs to be appropriately specified in the registry that the string EST does refer to constrained EST, and I think the registry already does that. If others, ESCO like you or so, feel that we should explicitly use different strings there, that's fine. I don't have strong opinions on that.
No, it should be okay to reuse the string.
So the registry would give semantics to the full string with all three components. So when you register RRM, COSE, EST, you tell people this is the EST that works with constraint Brewski.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so one of the things I was doing for the 01 version I pushed yesterday was exactly separating out the registry that IANA should see right now, which is really only those variations for which we have done those specs, and then, more informationally, something which we may even remove from the RFC, possible variations that could end up in the registry where we haven't done exactly that validation. Do we really feel that we do have an explicit understanding how each of the variation pieces works in the context of that particular transport? So now to the core LF. So pretty much the string would go in the new attribute BV equals string, Brewski variation. And then here on the page is the list of the discovery of, in this case, the registrar variations, because they're, of course, more interesting. There are more of them than for when a pledge discovers a proxy. So the first one, CoAP S, without any string, any Bruschi variation string, that would be, the backward compatible version with constraint voucher. This is what constraint voucher would be specifying. Then we have Bruschi.rjpy, which is what also no Bruschi variation string, which is what the constraint proxy would be looking for when the registrar supports the constraint protocol. Then the third one would be for 8995, and that BV empty is because so these strings have logically right now 3 components, but then in the registry the defaults are shortened out because otherwise we can't really make extensions, right? So if we figure out, oh, we do a variation of Bruschi by separating out one part of the protocol that we haven't varied so far, and we're starting to create, say, oh, we're creating new variations out of that, then all the old implementations will not have that variation substring, right? So to do that consistently in extensible fashion, we're shortening this out. So that means that the Bruschi variation string for RFC 8995 is really empty, because that's what older implementations would have already done. I hope that explanation makes sense. I always feel that that's quite painful. So then the Bruschi AE variation, RRM, Jose, and CMP. That would be Bruschi variation equals CMP. And wait a second, is there a... Oh, sorry, this is duplicated. Sorry, bug in the slide. So we would have PRM-CMP for the PRM variation. Jose, right. So, and yes, I think the last one is one of those questionable ones, right? So I don't think we have the ability to do COSE inside of HTTPS. So that's, I think, one of those things that we haven't specified today, and I'm not sure if it would even work without new specification, right?
Just a question, Paulus. I think we discussed it on Tuesday. Those variations do not exist currently. Right.
So these last darn, I can't edit, of course, here. Right. So the last two ones would need to, I think, in the in the 01 version, I already put them into a different example and table as potential future ones, and not
because also the one on the third line from the bottom, PRM CMP, while it could be done, it's not defined yet.
Okay. Right. Yes. So those. Let me just.
So who is doing the discovery here? Is that the proxy?
Yes. PRM CMP. Right. So this is pretty much, oops, what I had so far. Yeah, if there are any more concerns about the core mechanism, so I haven't gotten to the point of wondering, is there anything additionally that we would need to consider? I think I've been missing to write down one or two questions here, so let me bring them up here. So we haven't thought about anything specifically for core resource directory. is that something that we would assume should be able to, just work with the definitions that we have? Or are there additional considerations to support core resource directory for our discovery mechanism?
At least from the RD point of view, everything that works on linked local discovery should just as well work kind of out of the box for the RD as well.
Yeah, so the linked local part is only when multicast is used by the pledge typically. So the pledge discovers linked local proxies. After that, the proxy has to discover registrars, and typically there, for that second one, it needs to look further away than linked local, also maybe site local, or go through a central discovery server like RD or a DNS server. So I think for the RD part, we want to use for the second part. So that's when the proxy needs to find registrars.
How does the registration actually work, right? So when we do a resource directory, then the resource would need to register itself with the directory, right?
Yep.
So is that is a different format, right?
Yep. Also, the registration is different from the lookup, basically. Yes.
But the especially when doing the simple things that RD provides, if the device registers and just does the default thing, that is send basically the content of its well-known core file up as part of the registration, which it might even be doing, which might be automatically part of the registration itself, then whatever is there in the well-known core file will also be usable through the resource directory. So it doesn't need to there should not be a need for a different kind of statement.
Right. So the contents you can reuse in that registration action. Yeah.
So it is the same content. It's just, sent to the resource directory as opposed to directly to the user, to a consumer. Yeah.
And it also needs to discover a resource directory or know where it is. That's another aspect. Otherwise, it cannot register. But the same is for the pledge. The proxy. It also needs to find the resource directory before it can query it. So,
right.
That's another point. Then you need to know where is the resource directory, and it could be different methods to get that IP address.
Well, yeah, I was just thinking, how much should we really write about those options as opposed to letting the choice of whether to use multicast, which type of multicast resource directory, to specific deployment considerations, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's I think the big question mark. In the ACP, we ended up with a 150-page document. So it seems difficult to figure out something generic unless you know the specifics of a particular deployment target. Is there something like, a typical well-known reference CoAP resource directory deployment example type of network or so that actually is being used in the IETF as a reference? Kind of something with 6TiSCH or any of these other low power other working groups.
The most widely deployed instance of resource directory that I'm aware of is in Lightweight M2M. They're not using like the full interface, but they're using registrations. I don't know of any wide deployments yet of RD as it is of the full RD inside IETF or in IETF proximity.
Also, Lightweight M2M is outside of IETF. And so you're saying that is a subset of resource directory?
Yes, they're just using the registration part and for lookups, they're using their own bespoke mechanisms.
Okay. Yeah. And how do they discover the RD for the registration for the RD server?
They have their own mechanism of pre-provisioning the devices, and then they basically talk to their Bootstrap server and register there, or talk to the server that is configured through the Bootstrap server and register there. So they take a basically configured address.
Okay, so that is not redundant.
It might be a set of configured addresses. I don't know that.
Okay. All right. So yeah, that's still going to be an ongoing issue. All right. Cool. Thank you very much. I think we're at the top of the hour. Anybody else something?
Oh.
Okay. Thanks a lot. And then we can close the meeting down. Sheng, anything from you?
No, I'm fine.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. See you all next time. Bye.
See you guys.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.